It says we're live. Is this thing on? Yeah. Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's kind of stormy afternoon here in Yerevan, Armenia. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to move this because I'm starting to get rained on. I'm going to move this over here a little bit. A little more. The rain is coming down out there. It's a beautiful spring day, and they need the rain, so that's okay. Thank you for being on with us. I hope that my audio is okay. My wife can tell me maybe if it sounds all right. Huh?
You're fine.
Okay, I'm fine. She says I'm fine. I want to talk about the upcoming operation by the IDF into Rafah. As it turns out, the IDF is ready and willing and able and waiting, and they have been for some days now, to pull off this operation. They are just waiting for the go-ahead from senior leadership within the Israeli military, or the Israeli government. Now, what is the holdup? What are they waiting on? Because Benjamin Netanyahu continues to say that they are going into Rafah. Nothing is going to stop them from that goal. And so why haven't they got in yet? Well, several things. They are waiting on the results of the most recent round of hostage negotiations, trying to get more of their hostages out of Gaza. They've had teams in Egypt talking with the United States, Israel, Hamas representatives, and Qatar and Egypt. And they're all pushing essentially Israel to not go into Rafah at all in exchange for some number of hostages in the dozen or so. I mean, the number keeps going down. It was over 40, and now it's much less than that, I believe. The problem is, it appears that Hamas is basically just trying to run out the clock on these negotiations. They are taking days and days and days to think about each successive round of offers that comes across the table. I mean, if you think about it, like, okay, how much time does it take to make a decision on, you know, if Israel says, okay, we'll give you 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. Thank you, Daryl. I certainly appreciate that. We'll give you 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in exchange for 40 hostages. Okay, so there's your deal. All right. How long would it normally take? How long should it take for Hamas to make a decision on that? An hour? 12 hours? A day? Why is it taking up to a week or maybe more for them to make a decision on each one of these rounds? It's because they are obviously just trying to run out the clock. Because they know that that the longer this goes on, the more painful it becomes for Israel. And if it becomes more painful for Israel, then Israel is more likely to end up agreeing to something that equates to a loss. Does that make sense? We have said all along that what it would take for Israel to win this thing is for Israel to accomplish what its goals are, what it has set out as its goals, and that is to destroy Hamas, number one, get its hostages back, number two, and they are, stalling is right. It is less likely that those two things will be accomplished the longer this goes on. More and more of the hostages are being found to have died. Now, we don't have a ton of information about the ones that have died, whether they were dead on day one, whether they were killed by Hamas sometime after that, whether they starved to death, whether they died from exposure, who knows? There has been some proof of life of just a very few of the hostages, but when they got very close to a hostage deal a while back, and we're talking about 40 hostages. The Hamas operatives finally came back and said, we can't come up with 40 hostages, which is pretty concerning, considering that there are at least 100 that are believed, well, about 98 that are believed to be still alive in there. But the reason that they can't come up with them is because the way that they spread them out in the beginning, they didn't keep them all in one place. They obviously have a bunch of these hostages wherever Yahya Sinwar is, around Yahya Sinwar as human shields. We know that to be the fact. But when they first took these hostages, what they would do is they would take them out to families and say, okay, you're responsible for this guy. Make sure that he doesn't get away. And they would lock him in a basement or an attic or something and feed him. But then as the IDF pushes further and further into Gaza, it becomes more and more difficult for Hamas to move around in some places. And so they sort of lose control over many of these hostages and don't maybe even know whether or not they're still alive or not. This is a problem, obviously. It's a problem for Israel. It's a problem for Hamas. Hamas is losing its grip on its most valuable possession, and that is those hostages. But as long as they are not proven to be dead, Hamas still can use them as leverage. And in these negotiations, if Israel says, okay, we'll give you 5,000 prisoners, let's say, for 35 hostages, and Hamas is like, we're going to have to think about that for a week. Really, what would take a week to think about? The only thing that would feasibly actually require a week would be for Hamas to go scrambling around and go, oh, crud, how are we going to run around and see if you can collect, can we even find 35 of these people? And it turns out that maybe they can't. So the IDF has been very clear. This is going to be able, this Rafah operation is going to happen. Now, they've been subjected to Anthony Blinken showing up uninvited for the 7th time yesterday since this war started. He just keeps showing up and saying, the United States, we have good advice for you on how to do. We may have lost the last 3 wars that we've been in, but we've got good advice for how you could win. You should be prosecuting this conflict, and why Israel pays any attention to them, I'm not really sure. I mean, it has obviously something to do with the billions of dollars. I think it was $9 billion that they just voted to give to Israel. And, should we be supporting Israel? Sure. We should be supporting Israel. And should there be some strings attached when we give them $9 billion? Sure, there should. But should Israel be taking advice from the United States when the United States pulled out of Iraq in, 2011 or whatever, and created ISIS by doing so? I mean, ISIS didn't exist before that. ISIS was formed out of the remnants of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So should Israel be like, well, if we do what you did, we'll have an even worse enemy to fight if we just pull out like you did out of Iraq? Should Israel follow our lead in Afghanistan in 2021? Should we, Israel, should they say, hey, it was such a good idea for you guys to just yank everything out of Afghanistan and leave $86 billion worth of weapons and equipment to the Taliban, make them literally the most well-funded, well-equipped terror organization on planet Earth overnight, just like that. Is that a good idea? Should we follow you for that? I just think that Israel needs to be taking whatever advice that Anthony Blinken has for how they should prosecute this war with a grain of salt. Now, for their part, Anthony Blinken has been reiterating the U.S.'s opposition to any kind of invasion of Rafah. And they keep saying that the reason why we're against this is because the Israelis have not done enough to get, we're still behind Israel, doing what they have to do to make themselves safe, they say. But we're just behind, we're just against them going into Rafah because they need to give more space to people where they can be safe. Well, Israel actually has already set up a safe zone right west of Rafah on the beach that extends all the way to Beit Hanun, which is in the center part of Gaza. It's huge. It's actually, the safe zone is larger than Rafah itself. Maybe you hadn't heard that because the mainstream media is not going to tell you that, but the safe zone that Israel set up for people to go to that are, ostensibly stuck in Rafah is larger than Rafah. They could go up there. They've put up something like 40,000 tents, and they've been pumping aid into Gaza at a rate that's never been seen before. As a matter of fact, they are approaching now 500 trucks a day of aid coming into Gaza. This is coming in from the Rafah gate into southern Gaza. It's coming in from several gates along the eastern side of Gaza from Israel. And Israel actually reopened the northern gate into northern Gaza, the one that, oh, by the way, Hamas happened to destroy on October 7th. So Israel had to fix it before they could reopen it. And that this sort of addresses the major point that many pundits, many media type people, and Anthony Blinken have been making, that, oh, well, you might be getting, you might have sent a lot of aid into Gaza, but it's not getting where it needs to go because there's still a lot of people in northern Gaza and they can't get any aid. Well, now they've opened up the aid crossing from the north that goes right into northern Gaza. And so if they're approaching 500 trucks a day of food aid into Gaza, that's actually about as much food as was entering Gaza before October 7th. So I've already pointed this out, that the amount of aid that was that has been sent into Gaza so far, it equals enough food to feed every mouth in Gaza for about 6 months. So there's no shortage of aid. It's just piling up all over the place. And now they are getting to the point where they are approaching the amount of food that was going into Gaza before the war started. And yet that's not enough for Anthony Blinken. That's not enough for the United Nations. That's not enough for UNRWA. So how much would be enough? Well, the answer is there's no amount of aid that would make them stop saying we need more aid. There's no amount. And it's not because the people are going hungry. In most cases in Gaza, I will make this statement right now, people in Gaza are not going hungry. In most cases. There are probably a few. There are probably a few cases where aid just can't get to the people. But if you go to Telegram and look on Telegram, you can see video of large convoys of aid being inside Gaza, all lined up down the street. And each truck in the convoy has Hamas operatives with AK-47 standing on top of them, shooting anybody who gets close to the aid. So if there are people in Gaza who are hungry, it's not because there isn't aid going into Gaza. It's because Hamas is keeping the aid from people in Gaza, and they're doing that on purpose because we're so hungry, our people are starving to death. That lie is leverage. It's a weapon for Gaza. And to allow their people to get the aid that's going in takes that weapon away from them. And again, it's not a kinetic weapon. It's an information weapon. And this war is primarily, at this point, an information war. And the perception of what's happening in Gaza is almost more important in the greater scheme of things than the reality of what's happening in Gaza, because that's where Israel is the only place where they are bound, they may lose. They could possibly lose this war in the information battle space if this continues. And that's why Hamas is dragging its feet in these negotiations. That, and because they want more time to make preparations for the fight that will happen when they do go into Rafah. Now, they believe, the IDF believes that they've dismantled 18 Hamas battalions. A battalion is equal to roughly between 1,200 and 2,500 men. Probably closer, in this case, probably closer to 1,000 guys, I would guess. And so the IDF has dismantled 18 Hamas battalions in northern Gaza, Gaza City, parts of central Gaza, and Han Yunis. And there are, they believe, 6 Hamas battalions remaining, only 4 of which are in Rafah. So they need to go into Rafah to take out those 4 battalions. And Anthony Blinken is saying, we believe there might be a better way to do this. Like what? Like what? Like just carpet bomb them? You know what would happen to Israel if Israel just tried to bomb these battalions out of existence, right? That's not going to go. That's not going to go well for Israel. What probably Blinken is referring to is he believes that they ought to just conduct very limited special operations raids into Gaza, and just pinpoint raids to go knock out known terrorist cells. The thing is, that would take for 6 battalions to take out up to 6,000 men. That would take years for them to successfully do that. It's a losing military strategy. Now, Anthony Blinken is not a brilliant military strategist. He's just doing what he's being told to do by the Biden administration, which is, get Israel to stop fighting. We need a ceasefire in Gaza because look at what's happening in the United States. The left-wing base, the voters for Biden are really riled up. They're really angry because of this war. So we need to put a stop to the war. Well, you know what? The best way to do that would be to give Israel everything they need and to take all of the restrictions off and say, get to it, get at it, get in there and kill those remaining 6 battalions and wipe them out and accomplish your objectives, make Israel safe, and then this would be over. And crazily enough, if they did that, this war would most likely be over before November. If they were just encouraging Israel to just go hard, use a hard hand, get in there and just get after it, this would be over by the time the election comes around in the United States for the president. But, Angeline, how do you know when I'll be live? You don't. Because I don't know when I'll be live, because my life is not, it's not regimented that way. I never know what country I'm going to be in tomorrow, much less when I'm going to have time to go live. So I usually try to let you know 30 minutes to an hour before I go live. So if you go to my Hot Zone, the main page of the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button and hit that little notification bell, you will get a notification on your computer before I'm about to go live. And that's how you can do it. I would also suggest you go over to chuckholton.com and subscribe over there. I'm putting up articles, I'm putting up photographs of our trip here in Armenia and the things that we're doing. So if you want to follow me in what I'm doing, go to chuckholton.com and subscribe over there. We really appreciate that. That helps really mitigate, as YouTube loves to demonetize every video we do, especially if we do anything that it says something mean about Hamas or about Hamas terrorists, or says something that supports Israel or whatever, it's very likely that we're going to get our YouTube video demonetized, and that means it costs us money. So by subscribing over at chuckholton.com, it actually helps to mitigate that and make sure that we can afford to keep doing this and bringing you this kind of news. Okay, so Israel has already significantly increased the amount of aid. We talked about that. The plan that they're considering now, that they're negotiating over, and again, Hamas is just dragging its feet, is a 40-day ceasefire, and in exchange for something like 30-ish hostages. They're trying to find the number that Hamas can actually come up with, and so far they haven't found it, at least not by Hamas's admission. So 30-something hostages given up by Hamas, Israelis that have been gotten out of Gaza, and then something like, I don't know, it's up to 1,000. It's a lot. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, including convicted murderers, convicted terrorists that will be gotten, let free, sent back to the Palestinian areas in the West Bank or in Gaza. What they ought to do is send them back to Gaza with tracking devices on them, and then just drop bombs on them once they get in there. That'd be good. But again, that Hamas, for its part, doesn't want this ceasefire to happen because they want to drag this out as long as possible. It's a weapon for them to be able to have this thing keep going. They would be happy with an actual ceasefire, but they want a permanent ceasefire with Israel leaving Gaza altogether, and that's not going to happen. Is it raining over here? Yes. Can you not see it? It's raining like crazy right now. Israel is not going to agree to pull out of Gaza completely and leave Hamas intact. Yahya Sinwar apparently wants the promise that they will be able to survive and reconstitute, and that's not going to happen. So there are only 2 brigades of IDF left inside Gaza at this point. They will likely be the ones who will go into Rafah when they go. Again, the IDF, for its part, is just waiting on the results of the most recent round of negotiations. Anthony Blinken is all but on his knees begging Hamas to accept this very one-sided, that Hamas would gain far more than the IDF would by the deal that's on the table right now. Far more. And Anthony Blinken is like, please, Hamas, please, I've got to be able to show some success here. And Hamas is like, nah, let us think about it for a week. And so when the IDF goes in, they're talking about 2 brigades, which is like 20,000 troops. Not all of those will be sent into Rafah, obviously. They don't need that many in Rafah. To take out up to, it'll be something like 4,000 Hamas fighters they believe are in Rafah. They would need maybe one of those brigades to go in, the 162nd or 98th, one of them, go into Rafah, and the other one to kind of hold down the fort everywhere else, because there are still up to, at least they believe, 2,000 Hamas fighters who are running around in Gaza somewhere, not in Rafah. Okay? I mean, they're still a threat. There have been IED attacks on Israeli soldiers. There have been, fighting that was happening even while Anthony Blinken was at the Kerem Shalom gate in southern Israel, that one of the gates where the aid is being sent in. He was there yesterday, inspecting the gate, and there was fighting that was audible from where they were, and so that there's still fighting going on in there. So just to run down the numbers, the IDF believes that it has killed about 13,000 Hamas fighters so far since they went into Gaza on October 20th. That does not include the 1,000 or so Hamas fighters who were killed in Israel after October 7th. So Hamas has so far lost about 14,000 fighters, according to the IDF. Of course, the Gaza Health Ministry, for its part, keeps spouting these unverifiable numbers, 33, 34,000 dead, and they say they're almost all civilians. Actually, they say they're all civilians because they don't actually admit to any Hamas fighters being killed at all. And those numbers are ridiculous on their face. They have been disproven. So this is where we are. Just to recap, this offensive into Rafah could happen any day. And that's the point. If there was just one point for this live, that's my point for this live. This could happen at any moment. The IDF is ready. They're arrayed against Rafah. They're ready to go in. They have been striking Rafah with airstrikes every time they see something that's worth blowing up. And there's a lot of things that are worth blowing up in there. They have so much air assets, so many air assets over Rafah right now, drones and fighter planes and stuff just circling over there. And so they see some guys running around with AK-47s, boom, they drop a bomb on them. They see some guys out there digging up the ground next to a road to put in a roadside bomb, boom, they take them out. And they've been doing that as they've been waiting. So it's not like they're just hands off, but at least 150,000 people have left Rafah already since the IDF pulled most of their troops out of Gaza several weeks ago. Again, I just want to point this out. The IDF has set up a safe zone that they said we'll leave that area alone. You can go there and you won't be subject to the fighting. You can go over there, and it's just next to Rafah. It's over on the beach, heading north all the way up to Beit Hanun. And the safe zone is larger in area than Rafah is. And they've set up tens of thousands of tents, and that's actually the area where the United States is building their famous floating dock to get more aid in. That's also where they've been airdropping aid every day out of airplanes onto the beach over there. So there is already designated a place where all the civilians, if you don't want to fight, just go over there and we'll leave you alone. Now, I can guarantee you that Hamas is going to do what they've done every time the IDF has set up a safe zone, and that is they will shoot at the IDF from the safe zone, trying to get the IDF to shoot into the safe zone and kill civilians. Hamas desperately wants civilians to be killed. Somebody asked Yahya Sinwar, I don't know when this was, but in an interview, asked him, would you be willing to stop this fighting if 10,000 people in Gaza died? And Yahya Sinwar said, even if 100,000 people in Gaza died, it'd still be worth it to us. So, they claim 30-something thousand. It's not anywhere near that, okay? But even if it was 30-something thousand people in Gaza that have been killed in this war so far, Yahya Sinwar has made it very clear, said it out loud. I would be perfectly happy if 3 times that number died in this. And that's because the more dead Palestinians, the better for Hamas. And so they want the IDF to have to shoot into these safe zones. Okay, yeah, Serena Wagner says the dock could be used to remove women and children. Yes, it could, and it likely will be used to get Palestinians out of Gaza. As a matter of fact, there was some talk over the last couple of days about the Biden administration talking about taking 150,000 Gazans to the United States, bringing those Palestinians to the United States and letting them live in the U.S. How do you feel about that? These are the people who cheered when Hamas went into Israel and murdered Israelis. Okay? And I guarantee you, if there are any military age males in that number, if they do bring 150,000 Palestinians to the United States, if any of them are military age males, some of them will be Hamas operatives. What do you think they feel about the United States? Do you think they're going to be thankful? Like, oh, I'm so grateful the United States allowed me to come here and live in the land of opportunity and be an Uber driver, and I'm going to be happy with that? No, of course not. We're already seeing an uptick in anti-Semitic attacks in the United States. We're already seeing an uptick in terroristic attacks in the United States. Do you not think that there would not be terror attacks in the United States by Palestinians if we bring 150,000 of them straight out of Gaza? That is the dumbest idea in the history of dumb ideas when it comes to Gaza. But yet that's what the Biden administration is talking about. Now, this safe zone is not the only safe zone in Gaza. There's even more. They call it a safer zone. Israel calls it a safer zone that's north of this large safe zone. Again, so safe zone number one, right next to Rafah, larger than Rafah itself, could easily fit all the people in Gaza. They could all go over there and be safe. There's aid there. There's this floating dock that's going to be bringing aid in. Okay, all of that's over there. But that's not it. That's not all they're doing. The IDF is going above and beyond and creating other even safer zones in areas that the IDF has cleared that are less likely to have to be involved if Hamas tries to, again, because we know already Hamas is going to shoot at the IDF out of that safe zone. We know it. So my point is, the IDF has gone so far above and beyond. They have bent over backwards, tied themselves in a knot, and literally done everything they can to try to placate the United States. Hello, Heidi for Israel. Thanks for being with us. Folks, you can support us right here on YouTube, apparently. Heidi for Israel does. And then it lets me know when you come online, which is kind of cool. So you can do that. Okay, so the IDF has gone so far above and beyond, it's ridiculous. They are allowing so much aid into Gaza now that it's approaching the amount of food that entered Gaza before the war started. Okay, there's fewer people in Gaza now that need food, not only because some of them have been killed, but also because many of them have escaped through Egypt. We talked about this on a previous broadcast where many, we don't know how many, but hundreds, maybe thousands of Gazans have left Gaza through Egypt. All they have to do is pay the Egyptian border guards, and the Egyptian border guards just go like, what Gazans? We don't see any Palestinians here, and off they go. This makes one wonder whether or not Yahya Sinwar himself could smuggle himself out of Gaza and go somewhere like Qatar, although the leaders in Qatar of Hamas have been feeling a little unwelcome lately, and because the United States, I guess, has been putting pressure on them, on Qatar, to stop letting the leaders of Hamas live in your country. So that's what I have for today. If you have any questions, put them up there right now. And so quickly write your questions because my grandbaby just showed up and I want to go see her. I want to go hug my grandbaby. Yeah, we need an airdrop of food in my neighborhood. Yeah, that'd be fun. There's a lot of... There have been 12 different countries that are airdropping food into Gaza. There have been so many parachutes over Gaza, you could probably create like a giant banner across the beach in Gaza that says, "Thank you, United States," because we've sent, you know, that $9 billion that they just passed for Israel. Well, a lot of that is not going to Israel; it's going to the Palestinians in aid. It's money that's been set aside to send aid to Gaza. And so, yeah, that's exciting. Thank you, Stanley Barton. Very kind of you. Always appreciate seeing you online, and appreciate those gifts as well. It would not surprise me, Carla, if food was rotting in Gaza. We have seen some evidence of that. And so, yes, a lot of that aid is not getting to the people, but it's not the fault of the IDF that's not getting to the people. It's the fault of Hamas, because Hamas is intentionally withholding that aid from the people or selling it to the people. And yes, without a doubt, very much of that aid is going to feed Israel's enemies inside Gaza. No question. Do you think Israel will go north after the Rafah situation? Well, Ryan, I mean, they are going to continue to be in the north. They are going to have to go back north and re-clear some of the areas that they've already cleared. And they're going to have to continue to go back north, back south, and just keep going around inside. Because, I mean, just today I saw on Telegram that the IDF forces in northern Israel found a large cache of weapons and explosives. Well, they've already been through that area, but there's a ton of stuff buried. And there's a ton of stuff. It's not like they've turned all of northern Gaza into a parking lot. There's still a lot of stuff standing there, and they have to keep going back and keep going back. And like I said, there are at least 2,000 Hamas fighters who are running around in central and northern Gaza, shooting at IDF soldiers up there. So yes, they're going to have to go back and forth and continue until they get the job done. And it's going to be a time-consuming thing. On another note, I wanted to point out, okay, Heidi for Israel, this is very good. She said, I saw a video with Gazans making little bottle bombs with some of the meal packets. Is that true? Yes, it's true, but they're not like super dangerous bombs. Here's what happens. Those MREs, I've had far more than I care to remember myself. Those meals ready to eat. Actually, the MRE stands for meal ready to eat. We used to say it stood for meals rejected by the enemy because they weren't very good. But inside those things, they come with a chemical heater, because when you're a soldier, you're in war, you don't want to light a fire to heat your food up because that shows where you are. So they have these tiny little packets that have some like magnesium shavings or something in them with a little chemical thing. And you pour water in there and it creates a chemical reaction. And then you slip the packet of food into that plastic bag, so to speak, set it on a rock or something, and wait a few minutes, and it heats them up. Now, you can't seal that bag up because it gives off nitrogen gas as it's heating up. Okay. Hi, Shirley. Thanks for being online. Shirley Bautista, welcome to Supporter. It sets off this gas in those little bags while it's heating up your food. So you can't seal up the food. And of course, soldiers, being usually teenage boys, being what they are, we used to love to seal them up anyway and put some water in there, seal it up, put it inside put it under a rock or, something like that. And then just waiting a few minutes, and then all of a sudden, kaboom, this plastic bag goes off and, makes a small explosion. It's a big pop. It's like when your kids blow up a plastic bag and, pop it. But it's not, they're not going to be creating large IEDs that blow up tanks or anything out of those little bag bombs. And so that's a little bit of what Ryan Macbeth calls DIP, which is disinformation, image persuasion, or something like that. And that's yes, there's a video of kids making little bombs out of those packets, but it's not like they're going to be running out and blowing up IDF soldiers with those things. Now, I'm not sure what would happen if you took the heaters, the chemicals out of 100 of those heaters and poured it into, a tire filled with nails or something, and then sealed that tire and then poured a little water in there and then set it out on the side of the road. The problem is you wouldn't be able to trigger it with any amount of accuracy. So it's just going to set off gas. It's just going to expand this gas until it ruptures whatever container it's in. If you put it inside a 2-liter Coke bottle, it's going to create a big bang, but it's not going to probably kill anybody. And so it's just really unlikely that those things, a big bang is scary. You know what it's likely to do, Lynette? It's likely to get those kids killed, because if, Israel's got these drones going overhead and they register something that looks like an explosion down there, and they look down there and there's some young men down there messing around on the side of the road, they're going to drop a bomb on those kids. And so it's probably more, like Mentos and Coke, it's probably more dangerous for the kids than it is for the IDF at that point. Your thoughts on the college campus concerns, LMG Philanthropy, go back and watch yesterday's podcast. It was all about that topic. And I went on at length about that. So, and the people trying to go campuses and spread the word are getting kicked out. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Yes, very much so. Let's see. I thought I saw another question up here. I would like to know your diet for you to be working as much as you do. Well, you probably don't want to know about my diet. Being on the road as much as I am, you can imagine how hard it would be to eat a real clean diet. And so I've been doing an experiment since January, trying to eat vegan, just to see if it's even possible, and just to see if I don't die, because I really like bacon. And I've been doing pretty good. It's actually surprising that most places that I go, I've been able to eat pretty close to vegan, or at least vegetarian at the very least. Here in Armenia, it's not too difficult because they have a lot of soups that are vegan. They have a lot of vegetables on the table all the time. So thank you, Bertha. Sure appreciate that. Thank you for the super. For me, clean is no pork. So Boomer, if you go look at yesterday's podcast, you said, is anyone going to follow the money from the campus riots? That's exactly what I did yesterday in the podcast. So go watch yesterday's podcast about that. Thank you, Carla Joe. Very kind of you. I think vegan is just an old Indian word for bad hunter. And I probably won't do it forever, but my goal in life at this point is to live one day longer than Connie, so that she won't ever be a widow. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do. If I have to eat nothing but tree bark and lychee nuts between now and the end of my life just to outlive my wife by one day, then that's what I'm going to do. But so I am experimenting with this vegan thing, and then getting my blood tested very often and trying to see what it does to my cholesterol levels and that sort of thing. And to try to, I want to find for me the most healthy diet for my heart. So I exercise a lot. I'm running a lot, but I'm making I'm trying to be as disciplined as possible about that, and we'll see how it works out. So ask me about it again in a few months, maybe. So, all right, that's it, folks. I'm going to let you go. God bless you all very much from here in Yerevan, Armenia. We are starting our tour today. We have most of the people here, almost all the people on our tour here in Armenia this May are viewers of the podcast. And so it's really fun to get to meet some of you guys and travel with some of you guys and sit around the dinner table and talk and share. Man, we've got some really interesting people who watch this podcast. Obviously, those of you who are watching are brighter than your normal Americans or not Americans. It's just nice to spend some time with you guys. And I hope to see many more of you at some point on one of our tours, wherever we go. So thank you very much again. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Take care.